Hey all. So in this session, I will give you a walkthrough through the client ID enforcement policy. So basically, this policy is used to give the access to some restricted client. So with this, the help of this policy, you can restrict the user to access your API. So let's say if you have developed or created an API and you want to restrict the user so that only some authorized person can access. For example, let's say there are five people in in your client team and you want to give access only to two or three out of them, then you can use this client ID enforcement policy and give access to them uh, according to the client credential that we will generate. And I will give you a through that how to do this part. So I have already done this part, so I will just give you an smooth walkthrough. So first thing is create go and log into the MuleSoft Anypoint platform. Once you do the login part, you will get this kind of window. So just go to the start designing. First thing is you need to create a API, sample API. So I'm not going to write the complete thing because I have already developed this. So I will show you how I have done this. So in the client ID policy, when you apply this policy, you need to write the traits or the line of code that is required in your YAML. So let me show you how. So here I have created one this. So this is the resource name that I have, test and endpoint. And here I have method get, which I have used to just to hit this API, this resource, and this is the tested successfully message that I will be getting if it is working fine. So I have two resources here. The one is sorry, I have one resource, and the one resource is having two methods. The first one is get and the second one is the post one. So in the post I have applied this client ID enforcement policy. So I have applied this under the method. You can apply to the complete YAML, just you have to do write that part over the endpoint, above the endpoint. So when you implement this client ID part, you need to write these codes. So here I have mentioned this is the label, you can say, which I have used under the method, and this is the part that is required. So this is the header. So in the header section, I want these two fields. The first thing is client ID and the second thing is client secret. Here I have specified what kind of the data. So the data will be of a string format. So client ID will be of string data type, and similar is the client secret as well. In the required section, I have mentioned true. So if you don't pass this, you will get an error. The client ID is required from the API kit router and the client secret as well. Okay. So once you do this part, I will go and test this. Give it a try. So if it is done correctly, then you will get an option like this. So if you send directly without passing anything, then here I'm getting success response. Sadly, I should not. So let me go to the back to the doc. So here, if you see in the client ID, string required, client secret it is required. So for the 200, I will be getting this response. For the 401, I will be getting this response. So here I have, you can see that 401 and 500 is there. Once you write this YAML, the thing is you needed to just click on this publish part and publish to exchange. So I will show you the exchange. So in the Anypoint exchange, I have this client ID policy, and I have created on 31st Jan. So I thought of sharing it too. So once you click this, once you publish your RAML to the exchange, you will need to go to the API manager. So let's go to the API manager. So in the API manager, what you need to do, you will click over manage API from exchange, and then here you need to enter your RAML name that you have created. So I have created client. So once you write this client, you will get the client ID policy. That is the same thing which is in this exchange that we have published. So once you do this part, you don't need to do anything here. So you can asset type will be automatically, it will fetch. If you want to see, let's say I have selected this, so it will automatically fetch. So now come to here. I have used this basic endpoint, and this is the Mule for. And you don't have to do anything. You just need to click on the save. So why I'm not clicking on this save? Because I have already managed this API in my API manager. So it is already here. So see, it is active here. Once you click on this, so it will say active status. So I will show you how it says the active status. So what you will do, you will go to the Anypoint Studio, let it open. Till then, uh, you will come to the policies, and here as you see, I have implemented this client ID enforcement policy. So you will go here, apply new policy, and here you will get option client ID enforcement. Just go here and click on this. So I have already applied, that's why it is not letting me to apply another one. So I will do the cancel part. Once you do that part, here you will give a you will get the API specification snippet. So this is the thing that I have added in the RAML. So for you, if RAML is 1.0 or 0.8, according to that, you can just copy this part and paste it in your main RAML file. Now close this. Let me see our Anypoint Studio. Yeah, so here we have this client ID policy demo. Let me open the Postman as well to give you a complete walkthrough. So once you apply this policy, the first thing is when you click on this manage API and you add that RAML that you have published to the exchange, once you add it here, then you will get a auto discovery, API auto discovery. So you will get this API ID. So I will tell you why it is showing active is because if you go to the runtime manager, so let me see if it is open or not. Yeah. So here we have this interface open. Till then I will give you a walkthrough here. So in this Anypoint runtime manager, I have this client ID policy demo and it is in running status. So I will click on this. I will go to the logs. So no need to go to the logs. I will show you here. Okay, so this is the API that I have, and I will show you the RAML one also. So in the RAML that we have published, we are having here, and the same thing is here. Okay, so once you do this part, this config.yaml is mandatory when you are going to deploy this application on the runtime manager or on the cloud. Why? Because when you do this part, let me show you. When you go over here. Here you give a host and port. So if you do the hard coding part, then you will get an error while deploying your application to the runtime manager, because it will say that you have mentioned port 8081. And on the Cloud Hub, it may not be possible that the same port or the same host get allocated, because once you deploy your application, the host and port will change. So that's why you need to give the um, you don't need to do that part hard coded. You will use the dynamically allocation part here. So in the config.yaml, what I have done, I have mentioned that HTTP host and port, and then I have added that config.yaml by using the configuration property. So you will come over here, you will write configuration, you will select these configuration properties, click over here, give the file name, or you can go over here and you will find that file name. So here we have this config.yaml, the same file under the source main resources. So you can directly give it over here. Once you do this part, the another thing is needed is this auto discovery. So you will come over here, you will give auto, and it will directly come here, auto discovery. So it will ask you two things, API ID and flow name. So the API ID you will get it from here. So just copy this part, come over and paste it over here. So it is just uh, generating a communication between the API and your flow. And here you can select the flow name, from which flow you want to have let's say whenever you make a changes over the policies over the raml, or any changes that you want to handle, so from which flow you want to handle. So you always try to mention it from the main. So I will select it this, as I have done this already, so I don't need to do this part. So I'll click on this cancel. Now if you see this HTTP, I have used this property placeholder. So whenever you are fetching any value from another file, let's say this is the configuration file, so you will use this dollar, then curly braces, and the proper naming. So I have used http.host. If I open this path, so this is the hierarchy. The root is the HTTP and this is the child, you can say. So it come under the HTTP. So http.host, http.port. Once you do this part, and if you test your API is working fine, okay, let me open the implementation part. So here I have this get and post, these two things. So once you test this fine, your application is running successfully. Let's say I'm going to deploy this application. So till this application get deployed, let me show you one more thing. So when you are going to deploy the application, you need a credential of that environment also. For example, let's say for a trial account, we have two environment. So one is sandbox and another one is design. So whenever you deploy application, see here we have this two environment, sandbox and design. So let's say I want to deploy my application to the sandbox, then what I need to do, I will go here in the environment section. Okay, then I will click the sandbox one because I want to deploy the application to the sandbox. I will click on the sandbox and I will be having this client ID and client secret. So I will note it down. I'm going to use this notepad. Okay, and we may require this client ID and client secret. We will pass this value. So the way of passing this is any point dot platform dot client id equal to, I will copy this client ID, I will go here, I will do Control V, and here I will say secret equal to, I will come over here, I will copy this, cancel, Control V. So, so our application got deployed. So let me hit this application. So let's say http colon forward slash localhost colon 8081 forward slash API forward slash test. Okay. Now if I try to hit this API, it is saying bad request because we haven't passed the client ID and client secret. So we'll go to the header, and here we'll pass client ID. We are passing anything, and client secret, and now we'll try to hit this. So it is saying tested successfully. And this was the expected response in our RAML. So if I show the RAML to you, so this is the test endpoint, this is the get method that we were hitting, and this is the response that we are getting now. Okay, so our API is working fine locally. Now we'll close this, and I will show you how to deploy this application to the cloud. So the important thing, you should always use this config file. You can name it anything. I will show you how to create this. So right click on this, go to here, go to the file, and give any name. So let's say I have given the config.yml. You can give property file under dot YAML and click on this finish. So there one more file will get created. Okay. So let me delete this one. Yeah, so we don't do this. Now once your application is working fine, what you will do, you will go here, will do right click, go to the Anypoint platform, and click on this deploy to cloud hub. Once you do that, it may take some time to load. So here you need to give your Anypoint platform credential. So mine one is this, and password I'm going to enter, and I will go click on sign in. So once I do the sign in part, it will open a window to deploy the application to the cloud hub. So I will say not now. So here, this is the application name. So as I have already deployed, so it is giving me option overwrite existing application. Deployment target is cloud hub because we don't have another environment now. And here in the runtime, you may find these things: runtime version, worker size, how many workers you are trying to get. So for the trial one, I have only one. So in the property section, you need to pass these things: anypoint.platform.client ID that I have written in the notepad, anypoint.platform.client ID, and this is the credential, client ID and client secret, that you can just copy and paste over here. And this is the credential of sandbox environment. So once you do this part, you just need to click on this deploy application, and it will take some time to deploy the application. So let me go on to the Anypoint Runtime Manager, and this is the application that I have deployed. I will click over here, and now I will click on this link. I will copy this link. I will go on the Postman. I will copy this, paste it over here, and if I try to hit this, it is giving me invalid client because we have created one client already. So I will go to the API manager, and here in the contracts I have created one client. So let me show you how you can create another client. So for that you will go to the exchange. Okay, you will come over here, three dot that is on the top right. Click over here, you will click on the request access. Once you click on this, you will name the API that you have created. So this is the, let me see. Okay, so we have this API instance. Okay, so this number is nothing, just the same auto discovery ID or API instance ID, if you remember properly. So let me go to the API administrator, click on this client ID policy, and here you see API instance is this and auto discovery is this. So this is the number is same. So I will go to here, I will use select this one. Now I need to create one application. I have created only already created one application, that is client one. If you remember properly, then here I have one application in client one. So now I'm going to create another client. Let's say client two. Okay, let me create new. So here give client two, and you don't need to pass anything over here. Just click on this create. So it will create one application, and just click on the request access. So this is the client ID and client secret that we are going to use now. So let's say I'll come over here, I'll paste client ID, I'll paste the client secret now. So this is the client ID and client secret that we are going to use. So once we created, we can close it now. And if we go to here and click on this refresh button, we'll be having the client 2 as well. So let's see whether we have client 2 or not. Yeah, so we have this client 2. Now I'm going to use the credentials. So I will click on this bulk edit. I'll copy this client ID. So Control C and do a Control V over here. Now paste the client secret as well. Control V and click on this QL. Now I will hit this API. So now we are getting the tested successfully. If we go to the runtime manager to see the logs, so I'll click on the logs. So in the logs, see, yeah, so get client ID policy implementation is completed. Get client ID policy implementation is started. So I have used two logger between the transform component here. So first one is flow name. So flow name is get client ID policy implementation is started, and the similar is one here is completed, and in the response I'm just passing the payload. And the similar thing is for the post one. So as the get is working fine, so you can uh, assume that the post is also, no need to give a demo on this post as well. If you want, you can give the post as well. So just need to change the post, go to the body section, click on this raw JSON and pass some value. So let's say I'm passing name colon Joe, and if I hit, I'm getting the response. Okay, and again we can see the logs. Yeah, so this policy is completed. Now let's come to the scenario where you will use the client ID policy. So client ID enforcement policy you can use to restrict the user to access your API. So here I have created this client 1 and client 2. So let's say if I want to remove access for a particular client. So in your organization, let's say 10 people are there and you have n number of endpoint and you want to give those access to some selected person. Then you can create as many application as we want, as I have given a demo to you how to create a application. So once you create the application, you will get a client ID and client secret. That credential you can share with your client, whomever you want to give the access. So this API I have implemented to the complete method. So now let's say if you want to implement that part to the to some method level or resource level. So let's say let me open this. Go to the policy. So let's say you want to you have two method. The first one is the get and the second one is the post, and you want to give the access get to some another client and the post to some another client. So in that scenario, what will you do? You will come over the policies. Here if you see, I have given the all API method. Okay, so I will come over here and go to the edit. In the edit section, you have option apply configuration on a specific method and a specific resource. So when you click on this, you will get an option select. So here you can select for which method you want to give. So let's say I'm giving for the get, and my endpoint name is test. Okay, and you just need to click on the apply. So this condition will be applied. So when you use this policy, so it means you are giving applying this policy for this separate get method, and you can similarly create a client for that one also. So in this way you can create apply policy at resource level as well as method level. So let's say you have different endpoint, so you can add as many resources. So for example, your API have 4 to 5 endpoint, and for each endpoint of a get method, so let's say for each endpoint you have a get method, and for that get method you want to give access to some specific client, or you want to restrict that person. So like you can't create a record on that endpoint because you are not allowing because you are not willing to allow for the post method. So in that scenario you can apply this uh, policy at the resource level. So this is all about the client ID enforcement policy, and I will also try to publish one detail or a blog on this, how to implement this API client ID enforcement policy. And I will also give a walkthrough. Just a minute, let me go to this client ID policies, client policy. So here we have multiple policies like client ID, cross origin, detokenization, auth to Mule auth provider, header injection, header removal, basic auth, caching, allow, block list, JSON thread, JWT, basic authentication, message logging. So there are total 21 policy we have. So I will uh, try to make a video over each policy. So the first one is the client ID enforcement policy. In the next session or in the next video, you will get a chance, or a new video will be there on the cross origin or either on this Mule auth provider. So yeah, and also I will publish a blog where I will mention each step how to apply this policy. So the client ID policy blog will be ready soon. And if you have any question, please put it in the comment. and I will try to give you answer. Thank you.